Good morning, and thanks for the introduction. I was debating whether I should have a presentation to be made or whether I should just generally talk. Typically, one thing I find is when there is a presentation made, one tends to stick around the slides which are there. So I thought I will not really have a presentation made, but I will cover some of the points which perhaps need to merit discussion at this stage. I know all of you will like to bombard a lot of questions on the withdrawal of the currency notes and what we plan, what is the way forward, especially for the digital migration to the digital or migration to the electronic modes. A lot of information is being published in the media, whether it's the electronic media or the print media. A lot of us have strong views on that. So for the time being, I'm not really going to talk about that. But let's understand one thing, there's a huge opportunity here. I'm sure that everybody in this room would like to do a transaction without using paper currency or a coin. We would like to have an electronic transaction. But at the same time, all of us have a nagging fear at the corner of our mind saying whether this transaction is safe, whether it is secure, and whether it will not come out with something which was not intended to. The best of the security experts always have some lurking fear as to something which is going wrong or not. Today happens to be the day when I'm told that in 6 of the airports they are going to do away with the baggage tags. I always used to wonder, why do we need to have that security stamp put on the baggage tag? And one of the things that at least in the Indian ethos we know is, we assume at every security checkpoint that the previous guy did not do his job. Now when you enter an airport, there is some amount of security validation that is done. Ideally, whatever has to be done should be done at that entry point. There was a mention about the perimeter made in the presentation made by Dimension Data. All of us know about the perimeter. So if you enter the airport, that's the point at which a person should be frisked, checked. All what has to be done has to be done. So we do that there. The next point is you go to the counter or you do a kiosk check-in. There is some validation or some security done there. Again, you go for the next validation, which is the frisking when you walk through the metal detector, when the X-ray baggage machine is there. Just before you enter the aircraft, again there is there. Why do we need so many checkpoints? And my view is that we always assume that the previous guy did not do his job properly. That's good for a physical world. But when it comes to money, and that is where Reserve Bank likes to see, that the depositor's money, I am a depositor of a bank, the money that I have kept in the bank is safe. It is secure. I get it when I need it. And I should be able to get it in a manner which is convenient for me, which is why the new delivery channels are coming in. There is also this debate saying that are banks having the various delivery channels which are comfortable for the customer. I'll just take half a minute and then go back to this. When my father goes to a bank, he needs his passbook to be updated. And belonging to a generation which is pretty old, sometimes he's not able to go. So I go on his behalf, go to the bank, get his passbook updated, and then I come back. The first thing is here is, where is that red initial on the right side? Try as I might to tell my father that that red initial doesn't matter. It's just a scribe. I can put the red initial and give it to you. What is the authenticity? He says, no, unless that is there, he doesn't treat that balance figure which is there as valid. In my case, I may get my passbook updated. I may not go bother about a passbook. I may get the statement through internet. Whatever way I want, I may be able to do it. I'm happy with that level of security. My son never goes to the bank at all and never has something called an account statement. Whenever he wants, he's got a mobile device or some other device through which he knows what's the balance. He doesn't care whether the balance is arrived at the right manner or not. He's happy with that level of security. So which security is it that we need to provide for? This is a dilemma which keeps haunting us always. And the bigger challenge about having the appropriate level of security is to decide what is it that is appropriate. Level is one, and what is appropriate. So this is where the Reserve Bank, maybe 10, 15 years ago, used to give prescriptive guidelines saying, thou shalt do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, and everybody had to necessarily follow. We have moved away from that. We know banking sector has really come of age. We know that there is enough level of awareness both amongst the bankers as well as their technology service partners as to what is it that has to be provided. So we've moved over from there to an era where we say these are the critical minimum parameters that have to be provided. Anything over that, great. but anything below that is not acceptable. So this is what we have tried to do it. I'll try to expand this word security by various alphabets which are there, and that gives possibly the basis on which Reserve Bank tries to look at security. The S stands for standards. We no longer say this is the security protocol or the security tool or the device or the particular secure service which has to be done. Instead, we only say this is the standard, follow the standard. Anything more than that, as I said earlier, is certainly acceptable. The next alphabet in security stands for E, and we look at the financial sector as the environment. The environment could be the employee who is working in the bank. The environment could be the IT systems or the information security systems which are there, including the data centers which was spoken about in the previous session. The environment could be the customers, the environment could be the government, the environment could be the regulator also, and the environment could be the entire world at large. Look at the environment, make the changes. Environment is very dynamic, so which means that all the security requirements have to be dynamically changing periodically. The next is C, and C in our opinion stands for two actual words. One is basically customer, because without the customer, nothing happens. So see to it that the customer gets what he wants. And as a customer, we don't want any security. Because the more levels of security, the more it is inconvenient for us to do the transaction. But then, as a person who has kept the money in the bank, we want the highest level of security. So there is a contradiction there. So C for customer, C for contradiction, C for even customization. This is where perhaps something we need to understand. What could be a security standard for the rest of the world may not necessarily hold good for India. I made the mention about the security in the airports. Most of the airports in the world don't follow the type of security that we do. Why? Because we are a society, we are a country where security threats are perhaps the highest in the world. So we need to have a customized security framework and a customized security offering made available at our end. So that's the next one. The next alphabet stands for U, and U, in our view, from the Reserve Bank perspective, is ubiquitous. Security is not only for the data center, security is not only for the laptop or the PC or the handheld device which the person is operating on. Security is not only for the information which the bank is storing. Most of the information a bank or a financial institution stores is not its own information. It is holding it in a fiduciary capacity as an agent, and if that information gets hacked into or gets used or misused somewhere, the bank is going to be held responsible. There can be huge suits which are filed against financial organizations for breach of trust when data is compromised. So security is not only for information. Security is not only for IT systems. Security is even there for people. I remember in one bank, I'm not naming the bank because there may be the representative of the bank here, and this is a real-life incident which happened last year. There was a fraud in one of its branches, and the fraud was a typical manual fraud, so it's nothing to do with IT. So when the team went and investigated into the fraud, they could find out the person who perpetuated the fraud. He was an officer in the bank. He had spent 8 years in the bank. So there was a lot of trust which was got on him. And when they did his background check, they actually found out that he was not the person who was supposed to have been recruited by the bank in the first instance. Okay, so the security, we don't know at what level it will be found out, what it will be there, and how it will happen, but this is what really is. So the ubiquitousness is not only for a particular item or a particular thing as we normally understand, but it is for a whole range of products, services, information, assets, people, HR, everything pertaining to what the financial sector is doing. So that's for you. The next alphabet is R, and all of us are comfortable about knowing R as not Reserve Bank of India, but R as risk. My view is that all of us in the financial sector, while it's not only financial sector, in most of the industry, our main business is to manage risks. We have to manage the risk of the customer running away from us. We have to manage the risk of seeing that the customer gets whatever he wants. But the more important risk is that we have to manage our boss every day. So risk is something that we always do. So how do we take care of it? And security is one of the risks that has to be taken care of. So risk management is something that is an integral part of the security portfolio that a bank has to do. Next is I. I stands for information here. The entire information that is available in the banking sector, in the financial sector, in any sector for that matter, is what decides whether that organization is going to be competitive and whether it's going to be staying alive. So information needs to be protected, information assets need to be protected, information needs to be ensured that it is available at the right time, right place, and to the right person in the right manner. A lot of interest is now coming on big data and big data analytics. Day before yesterday, I got a call from many of these telemarketing guys are there. My phone is on the DND, it says do not disturb, but still I got a call. And out of curiosity, I was just sitting at the airport, so I said, let me continue with the call. So the first call was saying that, sir, you're a privileged customer of our bank, you hold a credit card. Then I said, fine, very good. What is it that you want? No, so we are doing a random check on this card. So we have found out that there is some activity which is abnormal. I said, there's no abnormal activity. I use my card in the normal way. No, sir, the transaction the amount that you have used in your transaction day before yesterday is higher than the threshold that we have given. So to check this, we just want to revalidate. So can you tell me your date of birth? Then I said, why do you want my date of birth? How does it matter? Because you have given me the call. I never called you. If I have called you, then you need to validate whether I'm Ganesh Kumar or not. You have called me, so why do you want the date of birth? Okay, sir, as a special case, since you're a privileged customer, we don't want the date of birth. Please just tell your ATM PIN number. Then I said, ATM PIN number, I thought you started talking about a card. Then that person said, no, sir, this is a debit card. Since it is a debit card, it's got an ATM facility also. So why don't you give me the ATM PIN number? Then I said, which card? I hold at least half a dozen cards. So which card is it that you want? No, sir, the card that you are using. I said, see, till now I've been amused. You have not identified which bank you're talking from. So you please tell me. No, sir, your bank. I said, my bank? There's no bank called my bank. Tell me which bank you're talking for. Then immediately the person said, sir, the card that you used yesterday. I was also getting a little irritated at this because the call was going on and I was just waiting for the flight. So then I said, okay, I've got your number. Let me do one thing. Actually, I had to play a game. So I said, I'm from the Reserve Bank of India. I've got your number. I'm going to now call the chairman of your bank and then say, this is what you're doing. Sir, who's Reserve Bank of India? Obviously, the telemarketer or telecaller doesn't know what it is. So they were playing on my emotion, trying to get something without even giving the bank name. This is perhaps the crudest type of frauds that are happening there. But then one needs to be very careful as to how to take care of it, which is where information plays a role. First of all, how did that person get my number? I don't know. Maybe it could be from some source. Today, we have got big data analytics capabilities. I give a search, maybe 100 information will come from the public net, some of which shouldn't have been in the public domain in the first instance. So we do not know how it's going to be impacting us, so we need to be very careful with information. The second last alphabet is T, which we talk about transactions, and transactions is the base for any financial entity to work. How do we ensure that this transaction that a customer does is safe, secure? The last one is Y. I leave it at WHY. But more important is what we look at from Y is that take care of a security instance when it is at its infancy or when it is in its youth stage. When it is at the child stage, typically it won't impact anybody because the security guy, let's say it's a hacker, he's doing something. At the child stage, he will just be trying to do something which will not impact us. It's the youth stage which one has to be very careful because that's the stage at which decides whether the incident can be continued or whether he has to stop it. So there was a talk in the previous one, the reference was mentioned about whether we have a proactive or a reactive stand. We have to have a reactive stand, there's no doubt about that. But if we can have a proactive stand, that will help things not getting materialized into a major risk, which is where the youth stage comes in. So that's, I just thought I'll talk about this is what we do. So what do we do from the Reserve Bank of India side? The area that we were till now worried about was for information security, information asset security, information technology security, and information system security. Today we have added on one more where we call it cyber security. Honestly, I do not know how to draw the line between what is information security and cyber security. Both are pretty intermingled. But what has happened now is that we are now working in a world which is completely interconnected. I dream of a day which is not very far off where perhaps I don't need to do my banking transaction using a particular device. I used to tell 2 years ago that the internet is more or less dead as far as banking transactions are concerned. Very few people are going to come through internet. That didn't really materialize that year. But today, the rise of the mobile has given a huge potential for people to do mobile transactions. Mobile banking is what is there. I do not know how many of us really do mobile banking. We use the mobile as a device to get connected to the internet and then we do the transaction there. But I think even mobile banking is going to go away. With the Internet of Things coming in, it's quite possible that my gas stove may become the device through which a transaction may be processed. My wife may be having her morning normal role of having to cook. And if the gas cylinder gets empty, the gas stove may send a message across to Bharat Petroleum or Indane saying that the cylinder is empty. Check the credentials of Ganesh Kumar. If he has got balance in his account, send a GPS message or a GRPS fitted vehicle near my house where there is gas cylinders going on. The knock comes at the door, gas cylinder is delivered, authorization goes from the gas stove saying debit my account for 600 rupees or whatever the cylinder value is. We are doing a small pilot project in one of the neighborhoods in Mumbai for this, and it's a very well possible reality very soon. So one doesn't know what is the device through which we are going to work. And when the ubiquitousness of the device is going to happen, how are we going to provide the security? When I do a transaction through the mobile, well, one of the things we say is, okay, any transaction that goes through the mobile should be safe and secure, so it should be encrypted so that the hacker or an eavesdropper doesn't get the information from there. That's good as long as it is a mobile device. Now, if it's not a mobile device, it could be my refrigerator, it could be my car. I just go through the car to the petrol bunk. Now, a lot of petrol outlets are equipped with latest technological capabilities. When the car goes in, possibly there is a sensor which checks and sees how much of petrol is there in the car. And immediately the attendant simply comes to me and says, okay, sir, your car has got just 5 liters. The tank has 25 liters. Should I put in 20 liters or what do I do? Better still, he doesn't come and ask at all. When he inserts the tube and switches on the device, it automatically senses how much petrol is there. That much of petrol is filled in. If I say top up or half or whatever, as soon as it is over, through Bluetooth, it goes, or through some wireless communication device, goes to his payment channel. From the payment channel, goes to the bank. The account is debited and goes in. The government has come out with a scheme now saying that if I do a digital transaction in a petrol pump, I'll get what? 0.75% discount. Okay, so that is the thing that we are saying. But I think that may not really be what is there going to be in the future. The future is that I don't do an authentication of a transaction. The transaction gets authenticated by itself. How many of us would like this in the banking channel? My banking friends here. We are used to customers coming to the bank, depositing money, taking money whenever they want in the form of cash, and going and using it for a service. The same thing is replicated in the ATMs as well. The view of Reserve Bank, and which is what is also going to happen in the future, is why should somebody withdraw cash, go and give it to an outlet where he gets a product or a service, where the outlet goes and gives back the cash to the bank again. Instead, can we not do an electronic transaction? Which is where today we've got authentication devices like cards and mobiles and other things like Paytms, etc., which authorize a transaction. Do we need that? Or do we need to have the system digitized in such a manner that as soon as the product or delivery is over, we are able to get the transaction also processed automatically? Which is where role of technologies like Aadhaar or unified payment interface, etc., come in. So that's another thing that the Reserve Bank is trying to look at. Are we looking at the type of delivery channels that are there today? They are valid today. They will be there for some more time. But the future is not going to be the type of delivery channels that are there today. The delivery channel is going to change. Delivery channel is going to change very quickly. And to my fellow banker friends who are here, one of the things I always say is that please look not at that 50-year-old or the 60-year-old who is banking with you, not at the corporate who is banking with you, but at the 25-year-old or 30-year-old who's just passed out of college, who's just coming to bank with you. Find out what he or she wants. And that is going to be the future of the banking. Now, if that is going to be the future delivery channel, how are we going to provide security for that? How are we, first of all, going to know that it is safe? Some of you here must have heard about a couple of instances where some central banks and some commercial banks lost money on account of messages which were sent over an international network. Correspondent bank's account was debited and the money went into casinos, and the tracking of the transaction was not there. Why? Do we need to have systems which take care of this? There is also a lurking fear that social media is getting integrated with hackers' capabilities. So suppose now, I'm sure somebody will be possibly giving a text message across saying that they are in Vivanta by Taj in this particular hall, listening to a talk given by Ganesh Kumar of RBI. If there is an intelligent hacker who uses big data analytics, he can get this data and say, okay, Ganesh Kumar is right now not in Reserve Bank of India. He is in Taj Vivanta. He knows that his card is not going to be used because he is addressing. He can, if he has got the details of his card, he can do a transaction with at this point of time. Something similar to that was actually emulated. There was this, in one particular bank, there was this man who was actually doing international trades. And when you do international trades of large values, if you get a huge profit, people like to boast about it. This was not in India, this was outside. So he used to send across WhatsApp messages whenever he did such good transactions, which resulted in huge profits. People were just monitoring these, and whenever they found a pattern in the way he was getting profits. We all know how the markets behave. So they intelligently got into it. The hacker wrote a small software which mimicked as if he is putting in this transaction. There were weak controls in the bank at that point of time. As if this person was putting in a transaction, it went in, authorized the correspondent bank to debit the account, and the money went out. By the time it was noticed, and this was just within a few hours, the money had actually moved in from the correspondent bank to a beneficiary bank, from the beneficiary bank to multiple accounts, so it became very difficult for the money to be brought back. While at one time we say technology is very good, helps us in doing a lot of transactions, technology is also very good in ensuring that the fraudsters, the scamsters, the hackers, and all the other people whom we do not want also use the same technology to send the money across faster. So what is it that we need to do? Ultimately, common sense is what we need to do. I'm sure all of you, the moment you see a person, you have the capability to assess, analyze, and say whether this guy is good or bad, whether he can be a friend or not, whether he can be trusted or not. I'm sure all of us do it. Maybe we have made a mistake when we chose our spouses, but otherwise maybe perhaps we are generally good in that. And this is one thing which all of us, that common sense innate feature that comes in us, possibly we'll have to use it when we do an electronic or a digital transaction as well. And that's the basis under which the Reserve Bank does all its guidelines, all its regulatory activities. For the banker friends here, there are going to be stiffer guidelines which are going to come in, because the world is becoming much more difficult to live in. There's going to be more security-related activities that we have to do, and this security is going to become part of our day-to-day operations. Jocularly, people were saying, 30 years ago, illiterates, the thumb impression was what was used. Cycle is fully today over. Today, the literates use thumb impression to do their banking transaction. I don't know whether the thumb impression needs to be necessarily done. Maybe when Joshi talks about from the other perspective, he will try to say, why do you need even a thumb impression? Maybe as I walk into Taj Vivanta, there'll be a scanner which will see my iris, gets the scan and says, okay, he is Ganesh Kumar, the door opens, enters into the hotel. If it's not Ganesh Kumar, maybe the door won't open. Of course, the Indian jugaad is there. I will piggyback and get through somebody else's thing, and we will try to exploit it. So the biggest challenge in security is to keep abreast of technology as it goes on. There are going to be increasing costs. There are going to be increasing learning experiences. I think doctors is one profession where they have to continuously keep updating their skills. I think bankers, from an information security perspective, from a cyber security perspective, also need to keep continuously honing up their skills. Conferences like these help, but then there are other methods through which it has to be done. So we need to be completely alert on that. I can go on generalization, but only two things I will say, and I will sum it up. Life is going to be much more easy for customers because, as I said, Internet of Things, digitalization, and various other delivery channels will come. Life is going to be very easy. But life is going to be very difficult to us in the financial sector. And I'm not saying only bankers, it could be the entire financial sector. Life is going to be very difficult because ultimately, anything that goes wrong, we are going to be held responsible. And if we need not be held responsible, then it becomes paramount important that we have the right secure systems in place. More details, the RBI website has all that. Keep updating it. Please keep watching. I'll stop with this now because I think we are going slightly behind schedule. Maybe later on I can take questions. But one thing, just a concluding thing is, the Reserve Bank may be appearing to be dictatorial, maybe appearing to say that thou shalt do this, this has to be done, etc. But at the end of it, it is done keeping in view that banks should be safe, customers should be safe, and therefore the country should be safe. Most of you would have heard about bank failures. The last bank failure in India where depositors lost their money was in 1960. Subsequent to that, we have not had many bank failures. Banks have been amalgamated, banks have been merged, but depositors don't lose their money. When was the last bank failure in the US? Last week, where customers lost their money. So, one good thing is in India, bankers are very good. That common sense innate factor that I said is there. We have also got a regulator who is tough. And at the end of it, because IT is great, we have got a whole set of vendors who help us in this journey. And I think we need to have a symbiotic, holistic effort towards ensuring that this continues in the future. Thanks a lot.